Hello, how are you guys doing? This is Rob of Ro2R Review. Welcome back to the channel. And today, surprise, surprise, I'm going to talk a little bit more about Metroid. Now, specifically what I want to talk about is Metroid Prime 4. Of course, that is the big game that we're all waiting for, the next confirmed Metroid game that we know will be releasing for the Nintendo Switch sometime in the future. Of course, all signs seem to be pointing to 2019, which has been my long-standing theory. We might get some crazy, humongous surprise from Nintendo, like at a Nintendo Direct in the next couple of weeks, where they're like, hey, gotcha, turns out it's going to be fall holiday 2018, and we're going to be playing it this year, and we'll all freak out and crap our pants over that. But also, let's be real, that's probably not going to happen. I'm sure that that game is coming out sometime next year. Now, with Metroid Prime 4 coming up so soon, I am so crazy excited for this game, as you know, as a huge Metroid fan. Obviously, a lot of you guys are very excited as well. There's a theory that I've had in my brain about Metroid Prime 4 for a while, and I did briefly mention it on a Q&A video maybe about 2 months ago. And since I discussed it then, it kept rolling around in my brain, and I was like, you know, at one point, I'm probably going to want to discuss this on a video and kind of make it sort of like a thesis statement for that topic, so I can share with you guys exactly what I'm thinking about and wondering, and kind of sort of predicting in a way about what Metroid Prime 4 might actually turn out to be. And of course, you read the title of this video, so you already know what my theory is, and that is that in some way, shape, or form, I kind of think and wonder if Metroid Prime 4 might secretly turn out to be Metroid Dread. And now, I should say there's a couple of ways that that could actually be true. It's more than just Metroid Prime 4 is going to be Metroid Dread. I feel like the very concept or idea of what Metroid Dread is or was will somehow be incorporated into Metroid Prime 4 in a variety of different ways. Now, I know this sounds crazy, but I'm hoping that you guys stick with me here through this video so I can kind of explain what my theory is and my sort of pseudo prediction as far as Metroid Dread and Metroid Prime 4 goes. Of course, we kind of need a little bit of a primer on Metroid Dread for anyone who might not be familiar, or maybe who just kind of forgot about this, because this goes way, way back. I believe it was 2005, over 10 years ago, that Metroid Dread was basically discussed by Nintendo as another 2D kind of side-scrolling Metroid adventure that was going to be coming out at the time for the Nintendo DS. You have to remember the Nintendo DS, the first ever model, was pretty new. I mean, I think that launched in 2004, if memory serves me, so, you know, that console was only a year old at the time that Metroid Dread was discussed, and it was really exciting. That was coming a year after Metroid Zero Mission launched on the Game Boy Advance. The DS was the new, hot new, two-screen sort of Nintendo handheld, and the idea of a new 2D portable Metroid called Dread was really super exciting. And then, of course, that's where things get a little bit weird. And the reason it got weird is because after that, Metroid Dread went almost entirely silent. And it was something that everyone was wondering about, Nintendo fans and Metroid fans. I remember following IGN like crazy back then in the mid-2000s and always wanting new updates on what was happening with Metroid Dread because it was a really exciting concept. And even the name got me really excited. I've actually been saying for so very long that the idea of a Metroid game that really tries to be a scary experience, more so than what Metroid Fusion tried to do, or even Metroid Other M, both of those games incorporate kind of scary atmospheres and elements to them, which I liked. I feel like Metroid could even dive a little bit further into that genre if they wanted, and, you know, the name Metroid Dread could be something that fits that kind of category, and it depends on what they were really planning on doing with it. That might not be the case, but the name certainly makes me feel that. It kind of evokes like a horror kind of nature. And so after the announcement in 2005 of Metroid Dread, a 2D game for the DS, it went silent and it disappeared. And a couple of things happened in 2007, 2 years later. That is when IGN very notoriously posted a very interesting article. I remember reading this, and I even did research to confirm that before this video. They made an article that was like games that were on life support and something to that effect, and they had a bunch of different games that were announced projects at that time, and what status IGN was putting them in. Like, is it likely that this game is going to come out? Is it not so likely that this game is going to come out? Or is this game basically just dead in the water and we're never going to see it? And in that article, 2007, Metroid Dread was listed as essentially dead in the water. They said, this is a game that you're probably just never going to see. Whatever happened behind the scenes with this game, This 2D game, Metroid for the DS, it seems like it's just not going to happen. It was in development hell, and so we're not going to see it. And that was tragic. I mean, I was holding on to the slightest bit of hope with that title at the time, and I was like, no, hey, we need this game to come out. Like, please, Nintendo, don't cancel Metroid Dread. And then here's where things got even way trickier, because this is a very famous moment. Later in that same year, 2007, Metroid Prime 3 released. And a lot of us know the big Easter egg in Metroid Prime 3. When you're on the pirate homeworld and you scan one of the computers after a fight with a bunch of space pirates, there is a little document that when you scan it, it basically reads, and I'm going to paraphrase, I don't have it in front of me, but I'll be showing it to you guys here. It reads something about Metroid status Dread is nearing the final stages of completion. And it's like, whoa, come on, hold the phone. What's going on there? That is not a mistake. That is not a coincidence. There is no doubt in anyone's mind that in 2007, 2 years after Dread was first announced, that wasn't done on purpose. Now, of course, if that was done on purpose, which, let's be real, it was done on purpose. I'm stating it 100% that was not an accident. But it's still tricky with that happening because, and that was crazy. That got everyone a buzz all over again about Metroid Dread. Like, oh my god, they're teasing Metroid Dread. It's not dead. It's not in development hell. It is going to be coming out. And everyone was just waiting for new updates after Metroid Prime 3 because of that stupid little thing that you scan in that game. And while I absolutely know that was done on purpose, the tricky thing is there could be two reasons why that was included in that game. One is that absolutely they were still intending at that time to create and complete Metroid Dread and release it, and for all we know it would have been a DS game, or maybe they would have decided to move it to like a Wii game. I mean, whatever the case, I feel like maybe they were still saying, hey, this game is being made, we're almost done, what a great way to kind of incorporate it into our new Metroid Prime game. Let's put it in as an Easter egg so people can find it and get really excited about it and get people talking about it. Or it could be something where they were sort of kind of trolling people, like maybe they were having fun at the expense of Metroid fans and people who were in the know about Metroid Dread. And that could be because maybe Metroid Dread truly never did exist. I believe it was confirmed to exist, but maybe it didn't, and so they wanted to just make fun of people who thought that they were expecting the game. Or maybe it was a real game and it did fall apart behind the scenes, and at the time Metroid Prime 3 came out, maybe Metroid Dread truly was already canceled internally and they knew the game was never going to launch, and they wanted to troll people and just kind of throw this thing out there just to get people excited again, which, if that's true, kind of makes retro jerks when it comes to that, because I mean the hype was real. I remember very, very vividly all the discussions about that. IGN and GameSpot and everyone was making videos about Metroid Dread Easter egg and Metroid Prime 3. I remember finding it myself when I played the game, and I was like, yes, something's gonna happen. Metroid Dread is coming. And then, I mean, whatever they were really trying to do with that Easter egg, the game never came out. And so at that point, we can fast forward pretty much all the way up into today, into this conversation. The only thing that really happened between then and now is when Metroid Other M came out, there were conversations. Is this really Metroid Dread? Did Metroid Dread turn into this? They basically confirmed no, it didn't. And then, of course, Samus Returns came out on the 3DS last year. And again, the questions were asked, is this Metroid Dread? And it was confirmed, stated and quoted, no, this is not Metroid Dread. This is only a remake of Metroid 2 on the Game Boy. And that's all it is. And so those are the only things that happened around Metroid Dread that I know of between 2007 and today. And so that, of course, brings us back to my theory and why I'm talking about Metroid Dread today in 2018 when we're waiting to get the full blowout and final reveal of Metroid Prime 4 and a date for Metroid Prime 4. My theory is I think Metroid Dread is making a return in Metroid 4. And like I said at the beginning of this video, I think that there's a couple of ways it can happen. The biggest and most blatant and obvious would be if the subtitle to Metroid Prime 4 was Metroid Dread. It could be Metroid Prime 4 : Dread or : Metroid Dread or whatever the case. I mean, it might be a part of the title, and I think that would be really crazy and insane. Or it could be the plot and the devices that were built into the 2D Metroid Dread back in the day might become incorporated into this game. I also like to think that Metroid Dread could and probably should represent an enemy or a boss or a final boss. The same way when Metroid Prime came out, no one knew until we completed that game, or at least scans you made partway through it, that Metroid Prime was an actual character. It was a Metroid. It was the final boss of the game. I thought it was just a cool name for a Metroid game when I started it, but then I completed the game and I was like, holy crap, the final boss of this game is called Metroid Prime. That was like super cool. It was a neat reveal. And so if there's a Metroid Dread as the name of a Metroid game, maybe that means that there's a Metroid Dread monster or enemy. Like they've done something else, the Space Pirates, in continuing to play with the DNA of Metroids and try to alter them to weaponize them, have created a different kind of dangerous Metroid, and they call that Metroid Metroid Dread. And so, even if Metroid Prime 4 isn't like subtitled as Dread, maybe Dread, Metroid Dread, is going to be like an enemy or the final boss within the game. And if we're playing through Metroid Prime 4, and we're none the wiser to Dread, and suddenly we scan something, or suddenly we run into a boss or the final boss, and it's revealed at that time to be called Metroid Dread, there we go. Bob's your uncle, and it turns out that Metroid Dread never did die, and it would have made itself into Metroid Prime 4. So that's pretty much my theory, and now to close this video and this discussion out, I should kind of explain why I think this might be what's destined to happen. And I think the main reason is why it makes sense for the plot and why it makes sense for the legacy of Metroid and for Metroid Prime specifically. And the big reason is because of that Easter egg in Metroid Prime 3, to tell you the truth. What I'm willing to bet, I think in the deepest, darkest recesses of my brain and my Metroid-loving heart, I feel like Metroid Dread absolutely did exist and absolutely did get canceled and fall apart behind the scenes. I'm basing this theory based on these two truths that might not be truths, but in my brain, they're true. And so I think that genuinely, sincerely, Nintendo canceled Metroid Dread behind the scenes back in the mid-2000s, when it was basically confirmed by IGN, you're probably never going to see this game, it's basically dead in the water. And so, why would you bring it back today? Well, I think what becomes interesting is as Nintendo decided they're going to make a new Metroid for the Nintendo Switch, and whenever they decided along that path that, hey, why don't we make another Prime game? I know we ended Prime back in 2007 with Metroid Prime 3, but why don't we make a Metroid Prime 4? Is there a reason to make a Prime 4? We feel like Metroid Prime, resurrecting that name and that series of Metroid games, is one of the best and strongest ways to resurrect the franchise and make it exciting for people again, because the Metroid Prime name specifically is so strong still today with gamers and Metroid fans. And so I would think creatively when they're sitting in a room and they're like, how do we make a new Metroid Prime game? What's our angle? What's our plan of attack? How do we make it feel like a genuine sequel when we otherwise wrapped it up with Metroid Prime 3 in 2007? And I feel like there's two things that would have gravitated them towards continuing Metroid Prime with the Prime 4. One, of course, is the end of Metroid Prime 3, where you see Sylux's ship show up and chase Samus in her gunship before it fades to black, and it's like, oh no, Sylux is going to go hunt down Samus. So you get the Sylux plot thread, the plot point of Sylux being like one of the main enemies or antagonists to Samus in the game, which is great. I'm very much in support of that idea. I can't wait to see that. The other is, I'm sure that they were able to say, hey man, we had that Metroid Dread game, we had these ideas, I'm sure they started working on it, so we've got these prototypes for this Metroid Dread game, and this whole concept, and we even threw a little teaser and an Easter egg in Metroid Prime 3, the last confirmed actual canon Metroid Prime experience. You know, we're not talking about Federation Force here. We're talking Metroid Prime 1, Metroid Prime 2, Metroid Prime 3, and then we're going to skip all the way to Metroid Prime 4. Bing, bang, boom, 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, one of the Easter eggs in the last Prime game, Prime 3, was that Dread Easter egg in reference to the Dread DS game that was being made at that time. I feel like there's no way they would have gone through the creation process and deciding what story they were going to tell with a Prime 4, and they didn't come across Metroid Dread. I know they had archives and schematics and drawings and plans and documents and notes and gameplay mechanics for the DS. They came up into that Dread idea. I know it. And I'm sure that they were like, what an amazing way to make everything interconnected perfectly and surprise the fans and make them excited and just also throw them a freaking bone when it comes to Metroid Dread and incorporate that into this game in some way. Like I said, what has to be remembered here is they might want to be really blatant with it and literally title the game Metroid Dread and make all of the mechanics and all of the boss fights surrounding the idea, or it could be something more subtle, like I said, where it's something that it's an enemy to the game or the final boss and something you don't find out until very, very far into the game. So they might want to make it just the thing that they're putting up in lights on Broadway. It's Metroid Dread, come play and enjoy Metroid Dread, or they just sneak it in there as this huge surprise reveal partway through the game. But I just feel like it makes sense. It was one of the things featured in the last numbered game that will literally precede this game. Why wouldn't they want to bring that back and resurrect that idea as they're resurrecting the Metroid Prime series and incorporate it into this game? I just feel like Metroid Dread is making a return. I would like to see them just come out guns blazing and title Metroid Prime 4 Metroid Dread. I think that would get me the most excited. And then it wouldn't be about the surprise reveal, and it wouldn't be about, oh, I've spoiled this for everybody, you know, by bringing up the idea. I would like it if they don't try to make it a surprise other than just when they finally reveal the game to us. That would be my preferred way, and I would like to get an idea of what Nintendo was doing with Metroid Dread on the DS way back and see how they've brought that into the 3D first-person space with Prime 4. I think that would be great. But hey, even if it's a boss, even if it's an enemy, even if it's a different concept that's incorporated into this game, I would still be excited, and I think a lot of Metroid fans would be excited too, and it would just be a lot of fun. So I don't know, man. I just feel like this theory makes sense. I feel really good about it. I'm not putting money on it. I mean, you guys know me. I'll make predictions. It's fun to do so. When I'm right, I'm very happy and excited, just like anyone. But that's not what my reputation is built on. So I could be wrong, but it's a fun thing to think about. I'm a huge Metroid fan that thinks about Metroid and Metroid Prime 4 all the livelong day, and so Metroid Dread has just been in my head when thinking about this. So at the end of the day, that's my theory. Those are my feelings, and I want to hear from you. What do you guys think about this? Am I crazy? Am I just grasping at straws here, thinking Metroid Dread might make a return in Metroid Prime 4? Or do you think there's something to it? You know, I mean, either way, whether I'm right or wrong, it's not like the game isn't going to be great, and it's not like it isn't going to be fun to experience it and see what it is they have decided to incorporate into Metroid Prime 4. But I'm telling you, man, I kind of wonder, Metroid Dread, I feel like we're going to see it, we're going to read it, we're going to hear it, it's going to somehow be in Metroid Prime 4. Even if it's just another Easter egg, which would actually almost be annoying. But even if it's just an Easter egg, Metroid Dread's going to be in Metroid Prime 4. I just feel it in my bones. I feel it in my Metroid bones that Dread is showing up in this game somehow. So, talk about it below. Tell me if you think I'm crazy. Tell me if you think I'm smart and brilliant. Whatever you think about Prime 4 and Metroid Dread, talk about it below, because these are my favorite topics, and I do want to hear from you guys. All opinions are welcome here as always. And that's it from me. So thanks, of course, as always, for tuning in, guys. This is Rob of Ro2R Review, and I'll catch you next time on another video.